Picture this scene: an auction somewhere in Minnesota. Two tractors sitting side by side in the field. A brand new John Deere gleaming in green paint, air-conditioned, touchscreen display, satellite telemetry. Right next to it, a 1978 model, scratched, stained with oil, mechanical gear lever, cracked mirror. Guess which one has a line of buyers forming in front of it? The old one. And this isn't nostalgia, and it isn't poverty. It's a deliberate decision by people who know exactly what happens when modern equipment breaks down in the middle of harvest, 50 miles from the nearest dealer service center. This is not an isolated case. According to the Minnesota Star Tribune, late 1970s and 1980s, tractors have become one of the hottest categories at farm auctions across the country. People are specifically hunting for that era, the era before manufacturers started packing equipment with electronics floor to ceiling. And there isn't just one reason for that choice. There are at least 10. Today, we break down every one of them. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything. Reason 1, you can fix it yourself, right there in the field. This is perhaps the most fundamental difference between equipment from that era and what's being built today. A 1980 tractor is mechanical. There's not a single electronic control unit that has to boot up before the machine will start. No sensor that shuts the engine down when it reads a fault code. No software that needs to be updated through a dealer's laptop before you can change the oil filter. What's there is a carburetor or a mechanically driven fuel pump or an injection pump you can disassemble, clean, and put back together with bare hands and a standard wrench set. A throttle cable. An actual steel cable that pulls the throttle plate directly. A gear lever connected to the transmission with zero electronic intermediaries. When something goes wrong, you look, you find it, you fix it. Sometimes right there in the field, right now. Pull the toolkit out of the fender box, spend 20 minutes, and you're rolling again. This isn't nostalgia. It's a real advantage worth real, measurable money. According to Iowa State University, a single 8-hour day of downtime during planting season costs a farmer $2,400. During harvest, $900 a day. Now imagine you didn't lose one day. You lost a week waiting for an authorized John Deere technician to arrive. During peak season, when you have 3 good days of weather before 2 weeks of rain come in, that's exactly what happens with new equipment when it breaks. Reason 2. 90% of new tractor problems are electronics. Farmers across the country say this number consistently in forums and communities, and it keeps getting confirmed. Sensors that fail from dust and vibration, the exact conditions a tractor operates in every single day, electronic control units that can't handle temperature, swings from below zero in winter to over 120 degrees Fahrenheit inside the cab in summer. Digital displays that go blind in direct sunlight, fog up with moisture, and just die one day, with no warning. Electronic PTO engagement, which used to be a lever that worked every time, that now sometimes simply refuses to engage for no visible reason. Farmers describe it this way. Before, when something broke, you looked at the machine. Now you need a laptop. And not just any laptop. The dealer's proprietary diagnostic software without which you can't even read the fault code. You can't diagnose, you can't repair, you can only wait. Reason 3, a new tractor isn't really yours. That sounds like an exaggeration, but it is the legal reality American farmers have run into head-on. In January 2025, the Federal Trade Commission filed an official lawsuit against John Deere. The core allegation: the company unlawfully restricts equipment owners' access to the diagnostic tools, software, and replacement parts needed to perform their own repairs. In plain terms, you paid $300,000 for a tractor, but you are not allowed to fix it yourself. You are required to go to an authorized dealer. The FTC said it directly. Unfair repair restrictions mean that farmers face unnecessary delays during critical planting and harvesting periods. In rural areas, these restrictions sometimes mean farmers must travel hours to get equipment repaired. And added, for those who have repaired their own equipment for years, these artificial restrictions seem particularly absurd. A A 40-year-old tractor doesn't have this problem. There's no software that needs to be reprogrammed through a dealer's server. No controllers locked against unauthorized access. No telemetry sending data about your repairs back to the manufacturer. There is metal, oil, and mechanics, and you can do whatever you want with it. Reason 4. The price. Just look at the numbers. A John Deere 9520RT, 572 horsepower, lists at $449,571 new. That is not a typo. Nearly $500,000 for one tractor. A mid-range utility tractor, 100 to 150 horsepower, runs $80,000 to $150,000. A solid working tractor from the late 1970s or early 1980s at that same auction runs $5,000 to $15,000 for the same horsepower, the same ability to plow, pull, and plant, and that's before you count the operating costs. According to Farm Progress Research, per acre operating costs on an older tractor run $20.40 lower than on a new one. That's not pocket change. On a 1,000-acre operation, that's $20,000 per year, every year, out of the farmer's pocket, simply because he chose new equipment over old. Reason 5, parts for an old tractor are easier to find than parts for a new one. This is the paradox that surprises everyone who runs into it for the first time. The logical assumption is the opposite. The older the machine, the harder it is to find parts. In practice, it works the other way. Parts for 1970s and 80s tractors are standardized mechanical components, standard dimension bearings available at any industrial supply store, standard material seals, belts, filters, pumps. All of it was manufactured in the tens of millions. All of it still sits on warehouse shelves. All of it can be ordered for next to nothing. Now try finding a specific electronic control module for a tractor that's 6 years old. The manufacturer discontinued it. On the secondary market, there are a handful of units at prices that read like a bad joke. The authorized dealer says, "We have it, but 3 weeks out, and here's the cost." This is how planned obsolescence works. The manufacturer stops supporting a tractor, not because it's physically worn out, but because the electronics are no longer produced or serviced. Farmers say it openly. My 1980 tractor will run another 20 years because parts for it will always exist. My 2018 tractor, I already don't know if I'll be able to find the right controller in 5 years. Reason 6. Emissions electronics are their own nightmare. Starting in the mid-2000s, tractor manufacturers began equipping machines with exhaust after-treatment systems, first EGR, then SCR with DEF/AdBlue fluid, then DPF diesel particulate filters. All of it runs through electronics, and all of it fails. The particulate filter requires periodic forced regeneration. If sensors detect a fault, the tractor can derate to minimum power or simply shut down in the middle of a field, not because the engine broke, because the electronics decided it was time to regenerate. Up until February 2026, manufacturers used the Clean Air Act as legal cover for repair restrictions. They argued that open access to diagnostic software created a risk of emissions violations. The EPA closed that loophole in February 2026, stating that manufacturers can no longer use the Clean Air Act to restrict access to repair tools. But before that ruling, farmers had been held hostage by this system for years. A 1980 tractor is completely untouched by this problem. No AdBlue, no DPF, not a single sensor that can lock the machine up over an exhaust emissions parameter. Reason 7. GPS, autopilot, and telematics are not free. Every new tractor today is sold with a package of smart features. GPS, auto steering, parallel tracking, automatic section control on planners, cloud telematics, remote monitoring. Sounds impressive. And under certain conditions, it genuinely works. But these features carry a price that doesn't appear in the brochure. First, GPS systems require a subscription. You bought the tractor, but full autopilot functionality is a separate purchase renewed every year. Stop paying? The tractor drives without auto guidance. Second, when the system breaks, and it breaks, you're back at the dealer. Third, and most important, young farmers who grew up running autopilot are losing the ability to drive a straight furrow by hand. This is not a joke. It's a real observation from agronomists and experienced operators. Dependence on the technology becomes structural. Remove the technology, and the operator can no longer function without it. A 40-year-old tractor teaches you how to work. A new one with autopilot teaches you how to push buttons. Which one of those is a skill? Decide for yourself. Reason 8. A new tractor ages faster than an old one. That sounds absurd, but it's true. Physically, a new tractor is made from the same steel, the same rubber, the same metals. Mechanical components have similar service lives. But in terms of compatibility with parts, software updates, and repairability, a new tractor becomes obsolete incomparably faster. Manufacturers release a new platform every 5 to 7 years. The previous one stops getting active support. Specific electronic components get discontinued. Dealer technicians lose familiarity with older platforms as they transition to new ones. A 1980 tractor has already survived this test. It's still standing at an auction 45 years later. And it works. How many 2015 tractors will still be working in 2060? Nobody knows. But given how modern electronics are built and how manufacturer support policies work, that is a very serious question. Reason 9. $3 billion in losses, the real price of smart equipment. In 2023, the USPIRG Education Fund, an independent American research organization, published a report with hard numbers. American farmers lose $3 billion per year from equipment downtime and another $1.2 billion from inflated repair costs, the direct result of the dealer monopoly on service. Total, $4.2 billion per year, every year, out of the pockets of the people who grow the food. Broken down to an individual farmer, that's an average of $3,348 in losses per season from downtime and repair restrictions. Money that isn't going to seed, fuel, or farm development. It goes nowhere. Into waiting, into overpaying, into machines sitting idle. NBC News, covering the FTC lawsuit against John Deere, quoted a farmer who put it more precisely than anyone. Time is absolutely money in this industry. When your equipment breaks during that one window when you can get everything done right, it can fundamentally change your financial results. The farmer with the 1978 tractor, by that point, has already fixed his and is back in the field. The farmer with the 2022 tractor is waiting for the dealer's technician. Reason 10. Old equipment is independence. And here we get to the most important thing. Not a technical specification, not a number, not a specific breakdown. The fundamental question: who are you as a farmer? An independent producer who controls his operation, or a corporation's customer, one that uses its equipment to dictate when you repair, where you repair, and how much you pay for it? Every new smart tractor is a control point. Telematics sends data about your operation to the manufacturer. Software can be updated remotely, which means theoretically it can also be blocked remotely. Authorized repair isn't a service. It's a monopoly. A GPS subscription isn't a convenience. It's a rent. And this entire system doesn't exist to make your work easier. It exists to keep you as a customer forever. A 1980 tractor doesn't know any of this. It doesn't know who's operating it. It doesn't send any data. It doesn't require any subscriptions. It doesn't lock up without a server signal. You bought it, and it is yours. Completely. Unconditionally. For good. That is exactly why farmers at auctions are standing in line for them instead of the new machines. Not because they don't understand technology, but because they understand very well what independence means and what it's worth. This topic isn't going away, and it won't. As long as manufacturers keep building more lockouts, more subscriptions, and more electronics into their equipment that you can't fix yourself, farmers will keep voting with their wallets for old machines with levers and cables, and there is more common sense in that choice than it might appear. What do you think? Yet if you're running older equipment, leave a comment, tell us what you drive and why you haven't switched. If you're on new iron, tell us if anything has disappointed you. These stories matter.